What's good, y'all? So it is currently 1:20 Eastern Time on July 1st when I'm recording this video. We're only a few hours into the official free agency period, and there has already been so many surprising signings, trades, cuts of some people. I wanted to kind of just make this video to start talking about it a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot more free agents that are out there that are going to be signed further, and I'm sure I'll make another video later on once everything, all the dust has settled. But there's just too much going on right now for me to sit back and watch it all happen, so I wanted to come on here to talk to you guys about a few of the moves. I'm going to be bouncing around a few teams here. Hopefully, it's not too unorganized for you guys. Also, before I get into it, I want to thank you guys for showing so much support on the last few videos. This last week has been, just great for the channel, so I appreciate all you guys. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, leave a like on this channel, follow me on Twitter as well. But that's enough self-promo. I know you guys don't care about that. I want to start this video by talking about, of course, my favorite team, the New York Knicks. Going into this offseason, there was a lot of chatter around the Knicks, obviously firing Tibbs, and they still, when I'm recording this video, have not rehired a new coach. There's a lot of chatter about them. We were very strapped for cash. People were talking about trades and all of that. I didn't really buy into the trade stuff. I kind of figured we would go into the offseason, keep our same core, and try to just fix stuff up around the edges, add more depth. And that's exactly what the Knicks have done with their offseason moves so far. They just added more bench depth, more scoring, and I really like both the pickups. Of course, the first pickup they did was they signed Jordan Clarkson for a vet minimum after he got bought out by the Utah Jazz. I think he comes to the Knicks and is immediately their second best shot creator. Besides Jalen Brunson, the Knicks really didn't have a lot of shot creation on their roster. Didn't really have another ball handler, really. It was basically JB and Josh Hart. That was about it, and a few minutes of campaign in there. Now Jordan Clarkson can come off the bench, and just be a scorer, a microwave scorer. I know he's had a few pretty down seasons in Utah. I'm hoping that it's just because he was overtaxed, and now that he is in more of a reclusive role, where there's a little bit more structure, better players around him, I think he can hopefully get back to being just a spark plug off your bench, and that's exactly what the Knicks needed. And the other signing the Knicks did, I like even more. They signed Guerschon Yabusele to a $12 million 2-year deal. The second year on that deal is a player option. I fell in love with Yabusele after watching him for France. 2 years ago now in the Olympics. He was hooping his ass off. The 76ers saw that, brought him back to the NBA. He had a great year for the Sixers, even though the Sixers were very bad last year. He was a nice shining bright spot on them, and I think that, again, he can come to the Knicks and just add more depth, add more offensive just firepower as a shooter, as a roller. I love the fact that he can play power forward and center. We all know Mitchell Robinson is not the most reliable big in the NBA. He really deals with a lot of injuries. So if he goes down, the Knicks now have Huck Porty. They now also have Yabusele. And then also, I like that we actually have a true power forward, or a true backup power forward rather, because ever since we traded away Obi Toppin, the Knicks haven't had that. It's been Julius Randle, and that's about it. It's been OG Anunoby, and that's about it. I'm sick and tired of Josh Hart being undersized power forward. It's overtaxing for him. So now bringing in Yabusele, you add shooting, you add size, you add depth. I love both of these pickups for the Knicks. The next team I wanted to talk about is the Milwaukee Bucks. There is still a lot of moving parts going on in Milwaukee right now. A lot of stuff going down this morning, so I'm not entirely sure what this roster is going to look like when the season starts. I assume it's going to still be a little bit different than what it's looking like right now. But the Bucks have been very active, making a lot of moves. They started by re-signing a lot of their players. Just to quickly read off a few of them. Bobby Portis signed a 3-year, $44 million contract. Kevin Porter Jr. signed a 2-year, $11 million contract. Gary Trent Jr. is back on a 2-year, $7.5 million contract. And Jericho Sims has signed a 2-year contract as well. I think I skipped over Taurean Prince there. My fault, Taurean. He re-signed for 2 years, $7 million as well. But the real crazy stuff happened this morning when the Bucks announced that they are waiving Damian Lillard in order to sign Miles Turner to a $107 million deal that is 4 years, with the last year being a team option. This was a huge surprise for me. First off, the fact that Miles Turner is coming coming to the Bucks. I was not expecting that. I do think it's a very good pickup considering they lost Brook Lopez. Miles Turner is a very similar archetype of player. I do think that Brook Lopez is a little bit better defender while Miles Turner is a little bit better of a offensive player. So it's kind of like, take it where you leave it with them. You kind of picking your side there. But overall, since they lost Brook, I like the fact that they're bringing in Miles Turner to still block those shots, to still space this floor next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. But it still was a shocker considering he was a Pacers for lifer, and now he's being traded to a conference rival, especially the Bucks, which is like their biggest rival right now, I would say. But again, that's not even the craziest part of this signing. It is, of course, the fact that they are waiving Damian Lillard. I know he's dealing with his Achilles injury and was going to miss basically all of this season, and he's turning 35 in a few days, so obviously as a small point guard going through an injury like that, it's not looking good for Dame. I just really wasn't expecting them to just bite the bullet like this and completely just waive him, stretch him, and he's gone. Then very shortly after that, Chris Haynes reported that Giannis is not very happy that the Bucks waived Dame. So that kind of reopens the can of worms of, is Giannis going to get traded? Will he request a trade? Is he going to stay there? Blah, 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 blah. That's why I'm saying the Bucks are super interesting to see, because I have no idea what their roster is going to look like on opening night, honestly. I don't buy into the trade Giannis too much just because right now he is the greatest Milwaukee Buck to ever play, and there is a lot of value to being a one-team guy, a lot of value to being the greatest player in franchise history and just kind of rocking out with that. So I know Milwaukee loves Giannis. I know Giannis loves Milwaukee back. It's just more, will he be fine with just kind of sitting and waiting? Because right now, the way this roster looks, they aren't going to be competing for a championship. I think they'll be a playoff team because that's how good Giannis Antetokounmpo is, and then along with the rest of their front court of Miles Turner, Kyle Kuzma, I guess you kind of throw them in there. I think they'll be a playoff team, but when your point guards are Kevin Porter Jr. and Vasilije Micic, who they just traded Pat Connaughton and 2 second-round picks for, I don't see too much going on with your team. Now moving on to our last Eastern Conference team, I want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, who have been absolutely killing it this offseason. If you want to hear me talk about their trade for Kristaps Porzingis, I have a full video on that. Make sure you check it out on the channel. I love that trade for them. High upside, low risk really, so amazing trade right there. They continue their great moves on draft night where they traded the 22nd overall pick to the New Orleans Pelicans for an unprotected first round pick next year, which is either the Pelicans or the Bucks. I mean, I just talked about the Bucks, so that's looking pretty good. The Pelicans, I've talked about them on this channel before. I don't really know what direction they're going in right now. So super valuable pick for the Atlanta Hawks without giving up much. I love that move for them. And then now in free agency, they made 2 great signings in my eyes. The first being Nickeil Alexander-Walker to a 4-year, $62 million contract. I love him next to Trae Young, next to Dyson Daniels. Those 2 guys around the perimeter is going to force hell for other teams defensively. I love the fact that he can come here and be a secondary ball handler, can stretch the floor offensively. Offensively, very low maintenance, but can be that ball handler alongside Dyson Daniels or Trae Young. And then defensively, he brings everything that Dyson Daniels brought basically to a lesser extent, but he brings that length on the perimeter. He brings the switchability throughout a bunch of different positions. He brings defensive playmaking with his steals and deflections and all of that. Slam dunk signing for the Hawks in my eyes. And then they also bring in Luke Kennard on a 1-year, $11 million contract to bring more shooting. The Hawks really haven't had a super reliable shooter on their roster since Kevin Huerter. They traded him away a few years ago. Now they bring in another white guy that has the strap, can come off screens, can just spot up and just catch those dimes from Trae Young. All around, I love what the Atlanta Hawks have been doing this offseason. Hopefully they continue it. And the way they're looking right now, I think they could be a top 6, maybe even a top 4 seed out east. Now switching over to the Western Conference, the first team I want to talk about is the Denver Nuggets. They really haven't made any crazy signings just yet. Just one, but I really do like. We'll talk about that in a second. But they have made 2 trades that I absolutely love for them. First one being Michael Porter Jr. and an unprotected 2032 first-round pick being sent to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. First off, when you look at this, that pick, yeah, it's a lot. Unprotected, super far in the future. That's a lot. Shout out to the Nets for being able to bring back such a valuable pick. But I still like this trade because obviously we all know Michael Porter Jr. was very, very bad in that OKC series. I know he was hurt with his shoulder, so you can't put too much on him. But for the amount of money he makes, that's just kind of an unacceptable series for him. So it makes sense they ship him out for a guy like Cam Johnson, who is making half the money. He's still under contract next year, and also brings a lot of the same production, being that lengthy shooter. I do think that on paper, Michael Porter Jr. is a better three-point shooter, but I like Cam Johnson and what he could do. I think he does a little bit more than Michael Porter Jr. with the ball in his hands, both as a cutter and also as just a driver. I think he can get to the rim more often, and again, still bring that three-point shooting and the length that the Michael Porter Jr. brought. But mainly, this was a move to help the Nuggets get some more cap space and more flexibility. Shortly after this, they signed Bruce Brown to a vet minimum. Honestly, I thought that Bruce Brown, he definitely deserves a little bit more than a minimum, but we all know he won a championship in Denver. He loves Denver. He probably wouldn't have left ever if he wasn't offered that huge $20 million a year bag. I don't blame him. I don't think anyone blames Bruce for collecting that bag. Now everything's well because he's paid and he's back in Denver. So shout out Bruce Brown. You guys know I'm a huge Bruce Brown fan. He's one of my favorite role players in the league, and he was great. The chemistry he has with Jokic as just a Swiss Army knife. I love the pickup for him. He really helps the Denver Nuggets and their depth. You know, him coming off their bench is amazing. But it doesn't stop there, though, because the Nuggets also traded Dario Saric for Jonas Valanciunas. Now, I don't know if there's other picks involved. Right now, all that's reported is just a straight-up one-for-one player. I highly doubt that is the case, though, because I don't know why the Sacramento Kings would do that. Maybe to get off some money. I don't know. But regardless, the players, we know these are who's swapping. And Jonas Valanciunas coming to the Denver Nuggets to be their backup big is huge, both literally and figuratively. Obviously, having such a big body like Valanciunas be able to come into the game when Jokic is sitting, it's something that the Nuggets haven't had in a while. They haven't had a good backup center since Jokic has been a superstar, and now that he's coming in here, I think he's going to be a great rebounder. I think you could play out of the post with him so you don't change up the scheme too much. He's a solid passer, obviously nowhere near Jokic, but is a solid passer out of the post. He's got soft touch. The one thing is he's not a defender, but the Nuggets know how to kind of get around that without having an elite defender at your center position. All around, I love these moves for the Denver Nuggets, though. They added flexibility, they added depth, and they addressed positions of need. There's really not more you can ask for. Now moving on to probably the team that I think is winning the most this offseason, and that is, of course, the Houston Rockets. If you want to hear me talk about them trading for Kevin Durant, I, again, have a full video on that on my channel, so make sure you check that out. But in free agency, after they made that big move, they have just been knocking it out the park every single move so far. The first move was restructuring Fred VanVleet's contract. He's now signed to a 2-year, $50 million contract. The second year is a player option, but only $25 million a year for Fred VanVleet. Great value to be their starting point guard. They re-signed their depth pieces of Aaron Holiday, Jae'Sean Tate, and Jeff Green, all to 1-year minimums. I don't think any of those guys will be solidified rotational pieces, but they're great for the locker room. They're great for, you know, if injuries happen to slot in there. I like that they're keeping that continuity going. And really the main splash pickup that they made, besides Kevin Durant, obviously, was Dorian Finney-Smith. I thought he was pretty much a lock to re-sign with the Lakers. You know, obviously he likes Luka Doncic playing with him and all of that. I thought it was a lock. I was wrong, though. He wants to go back to Texas, this time going to Houston. And he signed a 4-year, $53 million deal. I think that's pretty good value for what Dorian can bring you. He fits their defensive model and their defensive scheme of just kind of being able to switch everything, have size, just lock in defensively, while also helping them with their three-point shot. I don't expect him to be a 40% three-point shooter again, but you know, around 36, 37, maybe even 38%, it's definitely going to help. Just adds more wing depth to them. And then they also signed Clint Capella to a 3-year, $21.5 million deal. This was a little bit surprising to me because earlier in the offseason, they extended Steven Adams. And I thought, yeah, they have Şengün, they have Steven Adams. You know, Steven Adams is coming off a great playoff run. That's solid. That's their center rotation. Now they're bringing another guy like Clint Capella. I know they did run some power forward Şengün minutes. I doubt they're going to start double big like that, but maybe they added this just to have injury reassurance. I don't know. Regardless, they have three very solid rotation level bigs on their roster, which isn't a bad thing. Worst case scenario, maybe they try to flip one of these at the trade deadline. Maybe they do run a three rotation or a three center rotation. I don't really know. All I know is the Rockets are looking super, super scary and looking like they could be one of the top teams in this Western Conference. And then the last team I quickly want to highlight is the San Antonio Spurs. They haven't really made much moves yet, but they have one of my personal favorite moves, and that is signing Luke Kornet to a 4-year, $41 million deal. Shout out to Luke Kornet, former Knick. I'm a big Luke Kornet fan. It just surprises me a lot. No disrespect to Luke, that I watched him when he first came into the league as a Knick, and then how much he has changed as a player, and now he is a legitimately good role player in the NBA. I never expected that out of him, especially how he's changed his game so much. So shout out to Luke Kornet. I really like this pickup by the Spurs because, first off, they actually have a defensive-minded center that they can put on the court when Wemby isn't on the court. So hopefully their defense doesn't fall off a cliff when he's not on the floor. And then also, I do think, obviously, since Wemby is such a versatile player, there are going to be lineups where it's Luke Kornet and Wemby on the court together, and that is so much length. I can't even imagine trying to score in the paint with those two on the court. All around, just one of my favorite trades or favorite signings so far in free agency. Definitely doesn't reach any level of the other teams we've talked about, but I wanted to give him a quick shout out. Shout out Luke Kornet. What do you guys think though? Let me know in the comments below what your favorite move of free agency has been so far. Obviously, there are plenty of moves that I haven't talked about just, in this video alone. I'll be making more videos in the future. I also give little, comments and stuff throughout on my Twitter. Hope you guys enjoyed this video though. If you did, make sure to leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch y'all.